Hey, peace and blessings, family. This is the Hard Talk with Jakim. Listen, this is Friday. What is this, the 19th? My Lord, this March is going great for us, man. It's going fantastic, but it's going quickly. Listen, I got a great show for you tonight. I've got a friend of mine named Dawn Riley. She's going to give you the whole title of what she does with domestic violence. But before we get to that, let's make sure that we like and we share. Hit that like button, hit that share button. And remember, 24 hours from now, you can actually see this full live broadcast in its entirety on Delaware Info Now. That's Delaware Info Now on YouTube. So I want you to hit the like button on the Facebook and the subscribe button on Delaware Info Now. And reminder, Unit 1 community. Remember, we've got some good stuff coming up with Unit 1 community. If you remember, I am so against the nonprofit industrial complex, but we're going to be doing some things for that. So without further ado, let me just welcome Miss Dawn Riley. Thank you for the Hard Talk.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So Dawn, tell them your exact title.
So my name is Dawn Riley, CEO, founder of Domestic Violence Ambassadors, otherwise known as DVA.
Oh, all right. And we are, Dawn is out of Delaware, what I like to call my home base, deal-aware, because they're always looking to make some deals that are against the community. Dawn is going to talk to us about some of the things that domestic violence victims here in Delaware and around the nation go through, and she's going to share some of her personal story. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is that, real quick, that there's an intersection between domestic violence and sexual abuse. And a lot of times, it's like hand in hand as a cross. Do you agree with that, Dawn?
I do. I definitely agree. Many times sex is used as a gaslighting tactic through domestic violence. It's held from them where they're forced to do things that they otherwise wouldn't want to do.
You know, I know for a fact that when I used to do self-defense courses up in New York, I used to have nothing but women in our self-defense. In fact, we made originally the class was self-defense for everybody. But what happened was the class became just only women. So it became a self-defense course for women. Now, if you don't know, I'm former law enforcement from New York. I also bounced at a lot of clubs. I did private security. I had a music business. I had a couple of businesses when I was in New York City. And one of the things I had always done, the last place I actually bounced at was a strip club in Mount Vernon. So if y'all know Mount Vernon, if you know that place, if you know of Sue's Rendezvous, that's where I bounced at for a number of years, moonlighting up in there. And I used to hear the stories from most of the strippers about sexual abuse and domestic violence. I used to hear it all the time. So I know they used to call me Pops up there because I was the oldest guy up there, but I was the quickest one with the hands. So, but
the other connection though between domestic violence too is when the children are young and the parents are promoting them sexually.
Oh my Lord, yes. Now I've had a lot of them in jail. Times on Rikers Island, whether it be in Rikers Island, Brooklyn House, Queens House of Detention. Yes, I've had a lot of them because I've worked mostly maximum security. Mm-hmm. And in maximum security, you get a lot of people who would be considered protective custody. Now, one of the things I found is that a lot of these people do not go through the system like they should be. What's your thoughts on it?
I don't think they go through the system at all. I have, in my experience, I'm seeing where there's tons of people that either are somehow connected to the law. The perpetrator is always connected somewhere, and there's no women's rights laws here. So I was surprised to see when I started really pushing and pursuing to get out. I went to first go get my police reports and found that I was unable to see them, and I still to this day have not seen them. Because I'm listed as the reporter and my abuser is listed as the victim.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and with that being said, he has an open strangulation case currently, and the police are now sitting with my I've now gone through all of my documents a second time with a clearer head, and I'm now currently waiting to see if they're going to let me press charges. But as of right now, I've pressed no charges, and he's on to his fourth woman.
Wow. Wow. And do you find this happens a lot in these kind of cases?
Yeah, absolutely. Because what I'm finding, and this is in my opinion, in my experience, what I'm finding is no matter if I had reported him for strangulation or assault, then they would have arrested him. He would have went to jail. It would have been what it is. Because there's domestic attached to it, there's no domestic laws. There's nothing there to so once that's attached, there's nothing wrong with what he's doing. So why would they pursue it?
You know, that's one of our problems in our states. I personally don't think it should be considered a domestic violence. I think it should be considered an assault, which probably get you in some states. Now, you have to check the states that you live in on what the municipalities and what they charge people with. But for the most part, this is an assault. A rape is an assault. And yes, even a rape is a higher charge than an assault. But yes, you still should be getting that assault charge as well. And go ahead.
My abuser was feeding me, actually should have federal charges. He was feeding me crystal meth through my food. So
Whoa.
That's actually, if you look at that all the way through the legislation, it's actually a federal charge almost immediately. Right. I've contacted so many people though, and nobody wants to touch it. And I know why, because he's working with the police.
Now that's always let me tell you something. And I empathize with you because I've seen it on both sides of the scale. I empathize. When people have hookups that either they have hookups in the courts or they have a hookup in the police department, or maybe they have a political leader that is putting pressure on, don't do that to Johnny, don't let Johnny do it. But yet Johnny has been an habitual abuser, and you know, our court systems are not handling this.
At all. I can't find an attorney that'll touch it. I can't find police that'll talk against it. There's just so many gaps. I mean, there's just nothing. Like, they've got all these things that are in place that sound really good, but absolutely nothing's being implemented whatsoever.
Well, I know if you can't find an attorney if you can't find an attorney in New York, they have what is called the Legal Aid Society. Down here, we have the ACLU.
Well, I never thought about that, actually. That's one I haven't gone to.
Oh, okay. So, you know, I have no law training, no law background, but I do know what stinkiness is. And believe you me, I've seen some stinkiness in the court system. And in fact, at this particular point in time, I don't even call it the criminal justice system. I call it the criminal system, because there's crimes being committed all over the place. Do you agree on that one?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this system is like built, I'm convinced, to completely re-victimize everybody that goes through something of this nature. Because when you call to get help and you're left in the situation, or you're never separated from to be even talked to see if you needed support. They just took everything at face value. I called the police. I said nothing was wrong when they got there, yet I was shaking and trembling and maybe didn't have half my clothes on, or you could tell I'd lost 30 pounds, like real fit. It was just a lot of things that should have been very obvious and apparent to somebody in that field.
You know, that's one of the things that I've always had a problem with. And, you know, here on the Hard Talk, we have been talking about this for a number of years. It's been the same thing. We don't see change. I'm tired of slow change. I think we need radical change in our criminal justice system. We need radical changes for how police officers and other law enforcement officials handle these types of things. Now, what I was always taught was that you take the man aside, one officer takes the man aside, one officer takes the female aside, and they try to get and see what is the real deal here. Did that not happen with you?
No, they came and talked to us both separately, but it was a situation where I was at his place. We may have been really inebriated. And like I said, up until the 4.5 months in, I didn't even realize I was doing it. But beyond that, then I willingly started to do it. So I know I looked absolutely crazy to these people showing up. But on that note, I did it willingly at excessive amounts because I didn't feel my bones breaking. I just had back surgery for a spinal cord injury. You know, that's just not normal. for somebody to cause that kind of damage and still be out walking, never received a charge or seen a courtroom, that's a problem.
Yeah, that is a problem. I know some of our viewers and some of the people on Facebook would like to say, "Oh, well, we didn't hear his side of the story." Listen, I never played the devil's advocate because the devil doesn't need an advocate.
Or female, I think that speaks for itself.
Yes.
Everybody got strangulation on their reports, but nobody's still doing anything.
Yeah. So never fall for that garbage that they didn't know. Believe you me, they know exactly what they're doing. You don't have to really, if you're a lady right now, please, if you're a lady or a man, listen, I told you earlier that I actually in New York City had to have an order of protection against a woman that I was dating because she stood on my doorbell. We broke it up. There was some drug abuse that was happening, and it was my apartment. I didn't want it. And my Lord, when the cops came, they told her that she had to leave. She went crazy. Mm. So we know, and I had to go and spend 24 hours through the New York system in order to get an order of protection. And if I did not have all of those taped harassing telephone calls at 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, they would not have granted me. To me, it seemed biased against guys. But more importantly,
I couldn't get a PFA. I had to figure out, and this is another problem. The first time he knocked me unconscious, I was twice within one night, within an hour. And within that same hour in between, he threw me across my house, which was probably the length of a townhouse. I called the police. He was throwing glasses of vodka on me after he knocked me unconscious first time because he had to make sure I was still alive. So when I come to, I reek of alcohol. I had one drink that entire night because my dad had just had surgery. So when the police came, of course, he's telling them that I stabbed him 8 times and chased him with a butcher knife. The shirt he was wearing was all my blood yet. Nobody has pictures. Nobody has nothing. So when I was in the hospital on the gurney, I said, I want to press charges. You don't have a foot to stand on. As a matter of fact, we have every right to put you in jail. And that's a common theme.
Wow. Well, I just checked the Facebook and we have Kimberly Chris is out there. Hi, Kimberly Chris. Peace and blessings. Peace and blessings to you. That is one of the issues that I've heard. And I've heard many of them. Believe me, on Rikers Island, I heard many of them. I was 21 years of service, and I hear every story. The one story I always got to me is when there's domestic violence and there's children involved in the household. And we get it from a police officer and their partner come out there and they tell the person to just walk away and go sleep it off tonight and go someplace, and then nothing happens.
I was told to lock myself, so I'm calling. He's got a PFA against them, so I'm calling the cops because he's violated on numerous occasions at this point, both verbally damaging my. I had to move back from Sussex County to Newcastle County because of this, and then I had to move in with my father because of it. So I mean, this has been ongoing. They've done nothing to make me safe. They told me to lock my windows and doors for my safety. Well, if you're telling me it's important enough to lock my windows and doors, why aren't you doing anything?
Wow. Well, I know in New Jersey, they had passed a bill, I think it's law, to make it easier for victims who have order protections to actually get firearms. And the funny thing I thought about that, and yes, I see you shaking your head. I'm going to shake my head too. Yes, to get a firearm, if you don't already have training in firearm training and all of that, to get a firearm in that type of state may not be the best thing. I can only say that if you're going to do it with training.
That sounds really dangerous.
Yes. But it may be a law that was meant to be well-meaning, but I think it misses the mark that you tell victims of domestic violence, go get a firearm. No,
Yeah, and the
I think
problem
it's
with that is we're going to jail for lesser things as the victim. And if you do the research, it shows. And, you know, even as far back, like I want to state this. I think Joe Biden, our president, needs to come back into play on this. So if anybody wants to reach out to him, feel free. The bottom line is that he led the campaign for the Violence Against Women's Act. And he led that successfully in 94. In 96, they made the last amendments. Since then, try and find some real solid data. Good luck.
Wow. So we have laws that have no teeth.
No, Delaware actually does not have the laws. There are about 28 states that actually have these laws. The rest of them are pretty much like Delaware set up.
All right. Well,
now the one thing though that one thing I have been able to find and get assistance with is they have a lot of these battered women's projects out here where they defend the victims for going to jail for a crime against their abuser.
What?
There's a lot of that out there.
Is this twisted or what?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you know, I'm a comic books fan. It's almost like, you know, Superman's Bizarro World. You know, it's
right?
like this is crazy. Not only that, I know there's a stat. How have Delaware been since the coronavirus hit? Where do we rank?
Delaware is number 7 in the country.
Number 7 for having a lot of domestic abuse and violence. And
yes, and if you put, I don't care how many per capita you put on that, that's a lot.
Wow. Well, you know, we in Delaware have a lot of work to do.
Oh yeah.
The second smallest state here. We have a lot of work to do. A lot of that is because of the people that were here before were not raising holy hell for things that matter. And those days are over. Absolutely. I'm telling you now, if you live in Delaware right now and you're a politician or an elected official and you think you're going to skate into office and not be brought up on your policies, on your record, on your concepts and your ideas, that's not going to happen. We started it in 2018, and now we're going to, because we're too far behind. Delaware has been decades behind in so many things, and to be decades behind in domestic abuse is shameful.
You know, it's so shameful. Was speaking to somebody recently who about 30 years ago went through 10 years of violence and then spent another 20 years running from it. And that's still 30 years later, we're still in the same position.
That is shameful. And you know, so many of the ladies that I met in my correction years and law enforcement years, so many of them had drug abuse problems as well. Because of the stress, I don't know what it was, because of something else in the family. That seems to be another thing that intersects with domestic violence as well. Not everybody, but
I've had issues with addiction. I got clean when I was in my early 30s. And I mean, I've smoked THC and drank here and there since then, you know, without over excessively until this. Once this happened, I mean, crystal meth is not a drug I would have ever, it's like shooting up. It's not a drug I would ever willingly do. I wouldn't have just said, oh, you might as well just pull the kitchen sink out. It's destructive to the body like crazy in many ways.
Well,
some of them, you're irreparable.
Well, I know the organization you started, DVA. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I've decided that since I've been unsuccessful at getting any assistance, including victims' compensation, because then I'd have to sign my forensic files, which are incorrect too. And I can't get those changed without an attorney or fixed. That's a problem.
Yes.
So DVA, I decided to start DVA to become part of the solution. I figured if they're not, I'm either going to hear from me without it, or they're going to hear from me with it. And at this time, I'm coming with a team.
That's right. Well, I tell you, the Hard Talk with Joachim, we love it. We will definitely have you back. You bring some good information, because I bet to believe right now there's somebody being abused right here in Delaware, right here in New Jersey, all over the country right now that's being abused. And they're thinking that they have nobody in their corner, and that's including the criminal system.
Absolutely. My goal is to make sure that as many people as possible don't have to suffer alone the way that I have. It's a very painful, lonely place to be, and you start feeling very disposable.
Yeah, and you don't want that at this particular time, especially now, since now a lot of the states are now lifting their restrictions. You could probably get out more, but even now, we still not out of this coronavirus. So a lot of people are staying in the same household with their abuser.
And then you have a lot of people, I mean, people lost their jobs. Now they don't have a job to go back to. So now they're still stuck in the house with no money, no health insurance. There's a lot of things happening.
Yeah, well, that's another reason why some people may want to stay with a person. It's easy for some of us to say, well, if that person's busting you upside the head, you should disengage. Just disengage from them. Well, it's not always that easy, is it?
Actually, I was pleasantly surprised. Actually, I wasn't aware that battered women syndrome actually had some solid definition, and that explains why people don't leave. Battered women syndrome is you are beaten and battered so bad that it becomes a mentality that you think they love you, and you start to lose sight of why you should leave and what's happening, and it becomes a piece of you're isolated. So this is all you're seeing. And for a lot of us, we come from broken homes and our relationships have already been unstable. So then you get into these, perpetual bad relationships, unintentionally, but it happens. So I think that the biggest thing for me is start bringing light to the secrets, start exposing all the secrets.
Yes, I believe that. I think Kimberly Chris says join the well-armed women in Northern Delaware. So I guess that's an organization, Kimberly. We're going to get some information on that. Thank you. The other thing that I've always said about this, and we prepositioned this earlier about the intersection of sexual abuse and domestic violence. Today, I just heard that some news outlets are reporting that the actor Armand Hammer is going through some sexually abuse charges. Now, I heard, we reported in other outlets that this was a Hollywood secret, just like Jeffrey Epstein was a Hollywood secret, or Weinstein was a Hollywood secret, and to a certain point, Bill Cosby was a Hollywood secret, that a lot of these people have gone on to be pretty successful, whether it be political elected officials, whether it be Hollywood, or whether it be standing in the community, yet they're abusers, and people have not reported them.
Mm-hmm. There's, yes, it's a fact, and it's known, and it's statistically reported that there's a lot of domestic violence within a lot of your police, that they're your neighbors, fire company, families.
Sure.
All of your big, solid, legal connected entities, there's a lot of domestic violence in their zones, and a lot of it goes unreported or doesn't hit the media outlets because of their titles and because of who they work for.
And then I watch a lot of ID. I'm going to admit, I watch a lot of Discovery. I watch a lot of Forensic Files. And one of the thing is, it doesn't get reported until it's too late, until there's a murder, until somebody loses their life, until somebody gets seriously injured. And then they always say, I did not know that was happening. You had to know.
Well, you know what? It's funny you say that, because I recently actually, at the end of last week, I contacted Newcastle County Police again, and I let them know that I was aware of my abuser's open strangulation case, and that I wanted to know what do you want? I said, I want to press charges against my abuser. Oh, and then they tried to stop me. Do you have pictures? Well, actually, I do, sir. I have a complete forensic file for you. So yeah, things are going to start coming to light. I'm just waiting to see what happens. And I told him, you can deal with me now or you can deal with me later. I said, but mark my words, if somebody dies, it will be on your signature.
And that's the way you don't want it to go. Whether the domestic, I have actually in law enforcement life had two lawyers, and I think 2 or 3 judges up in New York City that got taken off the bench because of some domestic / sexual abuse type things that were happening. And even then, they made sure to protect the judge that you didn't get the whole story. But if it was you, they would have put it out and the press would have been front page news or whatever. So, you know, we've got to tighten up that no one is more special than the other.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care if it's your county exec, your governor, if they are doing stuff. Now, we're not going to talk about too much of Cuomo because that's a different situation to a point. To a point. A lot of these things start somewhere. Mm-hmm. You don't get an accident. If you pull one thing out of an accident, you don't have an accident. But it also has a beginning and a middle and the end.
Well, listen, let me explain something. I was a victim of sexual assault actually by a Newark doctor in the last 10 years. And
sorry to hear that.
Thank you. He didn't go to jail. He was a world-renowned neurosurgeon on Main Street. He's now passed away. But they told us he wasn't, like 13 other girls came out. 11 of us ended up on the case. They let him sell all of his stuff before paying anybody out. Me and one other person got like 30 grand or whatever. And he never went to jail. And they told us because he's sick and he's going to die. Well, if it was my dad, would you feel the same way?
You know, the good old boy network is ridiculous. And let me tell you something. You don't have to be a good old boy. Don't think that the good old boy network is just white guys doing it. They have their agents that are Hispanic or Black or Asian or woman. And, you know, the first thing I'm going to say that I have seen is that women seem to be even more harder on you than the guys if you was going as a judge. I don't know why that is. It's some patriarch loyalty to men. I don't know. But women have a hard time believing other women.
Yeah, I know why I don't trust other women. That has to do with my childhood and my mom, but it does definitely run all the way through my adult life. I like just recently with DVA just started making actual real grounded friendships with women.
And that's important because if they don't respect, if they can't see it, a lot of times, how are you going to get anybody else, especially the opposite sex, to see it? So, you know, all I have to say is that there's a lot of garbage in the criminal system that needs to be fixed. And this is one of them. In Delaware, if you're listening to this thing, if you're listening to our cast tonight, remember, click, share, like, subscribe at Delaware Info Now over here on Facebook as well. The Hard Talk. We're talking to Dawn Riley. If you're a political person or elected official right now, and you have not drafted anything to change domestic laws in Delaware, you're not doing your job. Now, let me give you this. If you just got elected, you got to pass. But if you've been in there 8, 9, 10 years, some of these people have been in there, oh my God, I'm glad some of them, and yet they have not done anything for domestic violence.
I haven't figured, I mean, I know it's a messy situation, but honestly, like nobody wants to touch it. Nobody.
You have to touch it. Mm-hmm. It is a legitimate beef for mostly, listen, there's more women in this world than there are men. So they are the majority. So more than half of the population may be a victim of it. Look, I have never felt scared to walk to my car. Don't get me wrong. I've been in some really sketchy situations, and where I'm from, East New York or Bed-Stuy, or even in Las Vegas, Nevada. But women feel this way all the time because they know that at any time, these crazy people can do a lot of stuff. Now, this may not be domestic violence, but the violence against women is so rampant in the United States.
And the other thing is too, we become hypersensitive. If you've been in an abusive relationship, you've now quadrupled the amount of sensitivity you have in all situations. You're on constant alert around you. You got your vibes going. It's a horrible feeling.
Well, you're absolutely right, Dawn. And I know when you're hypersensitive like that, you want to slink back to your house, scared and or go in the house and don't enjoy life, and you know that's not what you should be doing, because that's when you can start getting depression. And here's where I'm going with this. I'm gonna bring it to mental illness. This is a big part of domestic violence, just as the physical and the mental. And I think so many people need to have mental illness counseling, mental health counseling. They need to get into there. And if the criminal justice system doesn't help you with that, if you ain't got any insurance, no health insurance, how do you get that?
You know, it should be made available. Trauma therapy should definitely be made available to anybody. I don't care if it is domestic violence or it's some other type of abuse. That should always be made available to a victim. And even if maybe I feel it's worse than you think it is, you don't know how I'm wired and where I came from to know exactly how deep that's affected me. You can't put your assumption to that. There needs to be a real good evaluation put in place, some type of something that can evaluate someone's specific space at that time.
I know Dr. Mary, if she's probably watching, or if she ain't watching, she'll watch it on YouTube. Dr. Mary is, I always refer to her because she actually is a psychiatrist and she has an office. And I know if she was here, she would be weighing in on this. One of the things I know she's got, that there's clients out there that need that counseling badly. They need this counseling. And if you're watching this and you're going through some domestic violence stuff, first thing I'm going to tell you is to get help. And
I would highly suggest, if you're in the state of Delaware, to reach out to SOAR. They are a phenomenal organization.
All right, repeat it again.
It's called SOAR, Survivors of Abuse in Recovery. They've made me feel extremely comfortable. They made it a point to keep in touch with me and to get me my intake complete so it didn't drag on. They offered me options with different events that happened in my life that I was unaware that could still be reported and part of my healing process.
Okay. Yeah, and that's another thing. Statute of limitations. We didn't even get onto that part of the law. I don't know if there is a statute of limitations here.
Well, the one statute of limitations right now, it's killing me, to be honest, is the one with the hospitals, because my case hasn't even been able to be charged yet. So there's a 2-year statute of limitations on the hospital. And I don't know how you fight that, but that's the one. As far as the actual abuse, there is no statute of limitations. If like SOAR was to hear that and it was not reported, they're obligated.
Got you. Good. That's very good. I know, and I know there's a lot of HIPAA laws that may preclude for people. Well, I guess you can sign some stuff over if you want people to have your information.
Well, the other thing is too, and I think this needs to be made very public to everybody. If you have anybody in any type of field, I don't care if it's a doctor, a therapist, psychiatrist, a pharmacist, an emergency room, a doctor off duty, they have an ethical duty and responsibility to contact the police and report that. That never happened for me. My forensic files never even went over to the police. So what I'm saying is make sure that you follow up and follow through, because you have to advocate for yourself with this subject, or you'll be lost. You'll be lost or hurt.
Yeah, I used to tell people, and I agree with you 100%, Dawn. I used to tell people, if you ever go to a hospital for anything, and it doesn't even matter if it's domestic violence, but even more if it's domestic violence or some type of assault or any type of thing, always try to get your medical records. Always ask for them, because I have seen in cases that medical records disappear from hospitals.
Well, and like I said, it's really important, because my forensic file was taken in the emergency room department right before they sent me to the psych hospital for an evaluation.
Wow.
So I was sitting there, I went through, and I literally right after I left him went to get my files. And when I couldn't believe it, this was probably like a year ago, June, I started reading through them. I was floored. I could not believe what I saw in those files.
Well, at least you got the files, because a lot of folks have been out there and their medical records disappeared. You can't rely on the hospital to keep your medical records. So I say, as soon as you get out the hospital, as soon as you request to get those medical records, you're going to need those medical records, especially if you're looking to do a civil case against somebody. The lawyer is going to need to have it. Now, that's the
other thing I would suggest if somebody is currently being abused. Sorry to cut you off, but if somebody's currently being abused, one of the other things that are so important are pictures. So it can be, it doesn't matter how good or bad the picture is. If you have to set up an account under somebody's name in Google or Dropbox, do something where you can get these photos taken and dropped so that they're not immediately able to be found on your phone by your abuser.
Wow, that's important. Repeat that again.
So if you have, it's really important to have pictures to show proof of what happened, because otherwise you'll be told it's hearsay. So use your phone, do whatever you have to do, set up an account on, find a program, Dropbox, Google Drive, something that is personal to you or that is a friend's or something where those videos go, or pictures and videos go immediately. I had videos of my abuser telling me he fed me drugs, and that wasn't even enough.
Wow. But that's very important. I mean, if you have a Gmail account or if you have some type of email account, make sure you send those things right over there just in case they get the phones and try to delete them.
Well, not just that, but for safety reasons as well.
Definitely for
that's
safety.
Often used as a set-off for the abuser.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, yes, that's a trigger. I understand that. And that's a trigger to start something else.
Right.
That is
and oftentimes more dangerous, because when they feel like they're being reported, that's why they isolate you and keep you away from family, friends, and everybody. I mean, after he knocked me unconscious the third time down in Sussex County, he tied me to a chair for 2 weeks. I was not allowed to go to doctors. I had a major concussion. I still have side effects from that. You know, I would like to just put this out there for everybody to hear. I did discuss that I had a spinal cord injury earlier. I also have a broken hand. I also currently have a tailbone that's broken. I also deal still with the repercussions of what they call it, post-concussion. So there's times I could be just sitting here and all of a sudden I can see like the air from the concussion, or I can't hear the cars on the side of the road. Like, just, it's horrible. Like the sensory, I guess is what it is, the sensory issue. So, I mean, this isn't somebody that's just complaining and hasn't done anything. Like, I have actual physical damage. Now that part is reported, but he told them that I threw myself around.
You know, and without giving legal advice, because I am not a lawyer, but I will tell you this, there seems to be some grounds for a civil case as well, once the criminal case is over. And of course, because we alert them to that, and like you said with the doctor earlier, when you said they allow them to get rid of their assets, they allow them to play the system, should I say. I'm not going to soft shoe it. They play the system. And when
I have another situation, even Jack Kim, I'm sorry, but even the other situation, I was kidnapped from a guy I was seeing 10 years ago. I have all these articles. They're all in the newspaper. I have the links and everything. And I was kidnapped. They went over state lines, high-speed car chase, almost died, tried to kill me. I mean, literally smacked the shit out of me. Oh, sorry.
Right.
Beat me in the ride. Anyway, when we finally stopped, they butted the gun through the window. He went to jail for 10 years. They dropped my Vine link on him. I found out that he was out last August because I started getting emails from him that he saw me and he knew where I lived and he could, all kinds of stuff. When I reported it to the police, they said that my PFA had expired and he was just trying to rekindle his love. He spent enough time in jail.
You know, let me, and I'm glad you brought that up, Dawn, and thank you. For people who don't know, the Vine link is a victim reporting thing. So it's supposed to be able to report to the victim all the information on the abuser, especially if the abuser goes to a correctional facility and is in jail. So they dropped the Vine link on you. You didn't get any notices that this person was being let out. And the only way you knew he was out was he was trying to email you telling you that he saw you.
That's correct.
That's gorgeous, ain't it? That's the system.
2 years
working.
Before that, he wrote me a letter from jail. They're supposed to, he went through, like, you know how they mail outside the prison and then have somebody, that's right. What he did. So I got a letter, like a 6-page letter, front and back in my, and I knew it was him instantly. My dad's like, I have this weird letter. It doesn't have a return. I was like, oh my gosh. And it was him. And I took it up to the courthouse and didn't do anything.
And they never moved on it. They never It went to parole or probation. The Department of Corrections never took any. Wow.
He was an actual inmate then. Huh? Yeah, he was an inmate then.
Right. These are the holes. Well, if they found out about that, they are supposed to take that, and that's supposed to be in it, and that's supposed to be part of the parole and probation assessment if he was trying to get paroled.
I was supposed to have a lifelong PFA.
Yeah. Yes.
So to find out that I had no protection all of a sudden was like, oh my gosh. Like, wow. I'm telling you, I walked around in complete fear for a while. I, for the first time, feel the least in fear since I left him. Yeah. So since I left him, I'm finally in a position where I'm able to go outside. I feel safe. I'm living where I feel safe. I have a great support team. I have who I call the Big Brother Squad. They look out for me, and I've got a lot of good people now. So I do feel grateful for that. I'm very blessed in that sense. I have a lot of people that are rooting for me to keep following through with this, and that's what I intend on doing.
Well, yes. Well, we're rooting for you. To anybody that's going through this, remember the first step is to get away. Mm-hmm. Second step is to report it. Pictures, even on your phone, you're able to have some audio recordings. But the first thing you got to do, and the same thing I teach for self-defense, is you got to get away. Mm-hmm. You got to get out of that situation. If you believe that this is the situation for you and you cannot disengage from here, believe you me, there are people out here, strangers you don't even know that will want to help you.
Yes. And the one other thing that I will highly, highly suggest is, and I didn't call initially, and I'm not sure why. I think when I did, I called anonymously. It was the 1-800, the National Domestic Hotline. It's 1-800, I'm going to mess it up, safe, 77. Anyway, National Domestic Violence Hotline. They were very helpful. Now, I didn't call. Yeah, they were actually very helpful as a survivor and as a victim. If I'd called sooner, I know for certain they would have gotten me shelter, things like that. However, my fear was so high that scared me too, like to that extreme, that it was easier to just stay in his presence.
Fear. Mm-hmm. Fear is a mother, ain't it? It gets us doing things that we know we should not get into situations with. Mm-hmm. And, one of the things we're not ever going to do is do victim blaming. But we have seen this happen a lot, that victim blaming is, how did you get yourself in this? Well, let me tell you something. In my 20-something years, I have seen people who were professional women be abused. I've seen people with no money be abused.
Yeah.
Don't believe that just because they were abused, they must be stupid or dumb or they've got issues. Sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it's fear of letting people know that you went, that you got that you're going through something.
Victim shaming is very real, very, very real.
Oh, yeah.
That has been a big piece of this for me. And I think that's part of what drove me. Let me say something else. When I was with my abuser, one of his friends took me and tried to rape me. I reported that and they told me I didn't have enough. It was hearsay. So I have the police report for that one. But this has all just been like, I don't even know what to say. Like, this is just insanity.
But you know what? Let me say, what you just said, it's not uncommon. Mm-mm. Because here's another guy who's going to try to help you that you think is helping you. And all there are is taking advantage. It's a manipulation. It's exploitation. They say, well, listen, she's already damaged. So why don't you give it up to me?
Well, and that's what he played on. He was going to save me. He was actually going to help me get to Florida and get away from this, and blah, blah, blah. And yeah.
Oh, yeah. Listen, I'm not surprised by that. I've heard of that. I've seen that. I've seen that with my own family. My cousins and they going through the same thing. And then this became a situation because let me tell you something, they can smell that. And when you have a predator looks and sees what is prey. Yep. And they're going to try to take advantage of it. So again, if you're going through this, watch out for other people that may be trying to take advantage of it. You really need to have a support system that's only there to help you get through this. Don't run into the arms of somebody else and you're going to be going through the same thing again.
Let me say to you, everybody out there, I don't care if you're a male, female, I don't care if you're a child, don't ever think for a second that somebody that knows both of you has your best interest in heart. That will be the worst mistake.
Oh, that is very, thank you. That's very hitting because because a lot of times they were just waiting to take advantage. Mm-hmm. They're waiting for to get in. So yes, if you're going through with
and they could be reporting back to your abuser all of your moves because that's what happened to me.
That's another thing. Yes. And we've seen that with brothers, sisters, cousins, best friends. We've seen that a lot where they are reporting all your actions to them just to be on their good side.
Yeah, the worst feeling, I was going to say, I've been in a lot of bad situations, some of them very willingly. And I'm going to tell you, I have never felt the fear and as unsafe as I have since this. Like, and I mean, horrible, like crazy situations that most people would look at and be like, ooh, none of that scared me like this. None of it.
Well, I tell you, again, we're gonna go to some legislators. Mm-hmm. We're going to try to get some laws passed here in Delaware. And again, to the viewers out there that's watching the Hard Talk with Jakim, believe you me, your laws in your state or your municipality is probably just as bad. Believe it. It doesn't matter whether you come from a big city or a small rural town. When it comes to domestic violence, when it comes to sexual abuse, a lot of times they have a lot of laws that have no teeth. Mm-hmm. And
or the loophole is so big that it's never going to do anything. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When you do it like that, they want to carve up the laws so that it doesn't get, so they can look out for friends of theirs. And the other thing is that I would like to pass on to young ladies, men, anybody who's going through this. Don't give up. Mm-mm. The one thing that the criminal system wants you to do is give up. Yeah. They want you to drop the case. The district attorneys or attorney generals, depending on your municipalities, or whoever they are, they want you, they don't want to spend that money. And when you say, okay, I dropped the charges, it's going to be all right. Let me tell you something. It's never going to be all right because they're going to think that they got away with it. That's how these people.
I reached out to our attorney general.
Oh, yeah.
She never once spoke to me, and she made it clear. She had her deputy attorney contact me back and tell me that she agreed with all of my police reports. Again, never speaking to me, and I've yet to see my police reports.
Oh, yeah. Well, let me.
Yeah, I know.
Let me just say this, and I'm going to be as PC as I can because this is not Jakim Uncensored. Jakim Uncensored, which is coming later this month. I could say what I want to say, but I'm going to be PC as I can on Facebook right now. I have learned that district attorneys or attorney generals or whatever type of magistrate you have in your municipality are not necessarily there for you. What they are there is to make deals. And if they can make deals and save taxpayer money, not justice, for the most part. Now, that's not saying all attorney generals. That's not saying all the district attorneys. Well, or all magistrates. What I am saying is that if you do not press these people to do the right thing, most of them won't do the right thing.
Yep. I've spoken to some other political figures, and one of them lit me up all the way to walked out of her office, and she said, "Are you ready to get certified?" I didn't even know you could get certified at that point. I got all excited and, oh yeah, shared my whole. She was more impressed that I still had my teeth after doing crystal meth than anything else.
Oh my Lord, yeah. But that's how it is. That's how it is. You know, we watch the criminal justice system on television. And you watch this thing and you think Adam 12, Perry Mason, or Law and Order. Well, Law and Order is the closest to it. In fact, I was on Law and Order, but Law and Order is about that's the reason why I always liked Law and Order, because it was about the closest to it. Deal making is part of the criminal system. not justice, deal making. So you have to make sure that the legislators have good laws on the books. You have to make sure that the laws are enforced by the attorney general and the police. And even then, you will still have cracks.
And we need to make sure there's a solid process, because between Sussex County and Newcastle County, the divide and the break in everything is horrendous. So I call up here in regards to the police reports, and they don't want to hear about it because it's from Sussex. Okay, well, then I start telling them about up here. But you said you were strangled. You said you didn't want to hear about that. Like, it's a big whirlwind of mess.
In this time, in this day and age, and for people who don't know, in Delaware, we only have 3 counties.
Right.
There's only 3 counties. Pennsylvania got like gobs of it. New Jersey got gobs of it. New York, same thing. But we only have 3 counties. Why we don't have a lot of the same laws in all 3 counties is beyond me.
Mm-hmm. We don't even have the same courts up and down the state.
That is correct. You're absolutely right. They have a different system in Kent County than they do in Newcastle, and the same thing for Sussex. There's, in fact, I'm going off topic real quick. That we have all of these school boards and school districts is ridiculous. We're a small state. Why don't we have one and we call them all these other things and we can get rid? But that's another story. But with criminal justice, we need to have some uniformity in this state. Mm-hmm. Second smallest state in the union, yet Kent is different than Newcastle. Newcastle is different than Sussex.
And, I mean, I had my attorney down in Sussex because I had gotten in a little bit of trouble with DUIs because of everything that had occurred. I basically drank myself safe, like till I was mentally felt safe. And my attorney was like, the process of getting my case transferred up here, he couldn't believe it. He was like, the documents were even different for the same exact thing, different ends of the state, completely different documents.
Wow. That should not be. Mm-hmm. That should not be. We actually could get into Kent County in less than 20 minutes from most parts of Delaware. You're in Kent County, and you're in Sussex County in 40 minutes, less than 40 minutes. Going down Route 1, you're going down there, you're 13, 1, whatever. This is ridiculous that we have so much. Now, I like to say, in New York, I used to say, the old Jewish phrase, why do we have so much minutia? And it's just so much minutia that's in our state that needs to get. So I know Judge Leo Strine was talking about that we need to go through all of the Delaware codes that is statewide and go through it. And I know that's a humongous task to go through. But right now, we're passing a bunch of laws that really make no sense to me. And we need to have some laws and to go through all those old laws that's on the books that are doing nothing for nobody and get them off the books.
I agree. We need to continue to stand up and make a stance, because it's not going to happen any other way. I'm just seeing like how these things are just being brushed under the carpet left and right, and it's really saddening.
Right.
And like you said, it is, if somebody's on here from out of state, feel free to reach out to me, because we are looking to go nationally. And on the other note, in regards to the resources that are certified by the state and are on every website you will go to for shelters, for the national hotline, they all refer back to the Delaware Coalition Against Domestic Violence. I've reached out to the woman that sits on the Domestic Violence Council Board. I've reached out to that organization to get training. I've reached out as a victim and a survivor. Not once have they returned anything, not an email, not a voicemail, nothing. Ooh. So my goal and from DVA is we're going to figure out what they're doing wrong, pick up the pieces. And
I'm glad you went there, because that's my other thing. Next week, we're going to be talking about the nonprofit industrial machine, the nonprofit industrial. Why do we have so many nonprofits that ain't doing their job?
Right.
Why do we have so many nonprofits that always have their begging bowls out to the state representatives and the state Senate, and all they're doing is paying off, making payroll?
Yeah.
They're not helping nobody. They're just making payroll. This is ridiculous.
People are getting hurt and nobody's doing anything. And, you know, it goes a lot underreported because, like I said, when nobody's helping you, you actually, as the victim, are much safer in your abuser's presence when you can see it coming at you versus being away from them and having to be on guard and not actually knowing what angle they're coming from. I mean, I use social media to track my abuser for the first 7 months before I would actually block everything. And they kept telling me, oh, change your numbers. Are you crazy? Like, that's how I track him. I'm not stupid.
You know, and you know, we can't get any real good laws. And that's the other thing that I wanted to talk about. We can't get any real good legislation if you got some legislators who are actually abusers. Mm-hmm. I know of 2 of them right now that have been alleged, been abusers and had to either settle cases or what. And Lord knows, we got way too many, and I come from law enforcement, we got way too many people that are ex-cops in our legislation. We have way too many.
Sometimes people become in these positions and nobody thinks about this because of they know what they do at home. So they put themselves in these positions to safeguard their own.
Oh, yes. Yes. Because their agenda is to help cops have better laws to protect cops. Mm-hmm. That's their agenda. I've been exposing that for the longest here. Mm-hmm. You got to stop putting cops in state legislature. You got to stop putting ex-cops or retired cops in these things. Let me tell you something. There's some great police officers out there. Mm-hmm. There's some great judges out there. There's some great lawyers out there. We have had enough lawyers be state representatives, be state senators. We've had enough ex-retired law enforcement be state senators, state reps. We've had enough doctors and lawyers. We need regular plain folk who've gone through stuff.
Yeah.
That notices.
Yeah, they always, you know, the bottom line is, and the truth of the matter is, the victims and the survivors are the best educators and the best people to be in place.
Yes, I will agree. I will agree. And, you know, we've had a couple of nurses. One nurse turned her back on the people. We've had a couple of nurses or healthcare professionals down there. And what happens with all of them, every last one of them down in Lake Hall, most of them, not all of them, because I got some that I do like. Once they get in, the game is to be reelected and not to do the work for the people. We start with legislation. You need the legislation that's going to help domestic violence victims.
Well, you know, we have the Victims Against Women's Act. The problem is, and that's a federal.
Right, right.
If you can't get anything handled at state level and they're not willing to take it on, you can't get in touch with internal affairs because they don't return your calls. What do you do? Well, and if I was to put my hands or hurt him or any of my abusers, I would be in jail.
Well, you do have a United States attorney that's for this region of Delaware and I guess South Jersey and Pennsylvania. You could get in contact with them, but I don't know if they can answer your calls.
Right. Yeah, I actually reached out to the U.S. Attorney's Office. I've reached out to quite a few different people, including the president again. And I will continue to do so. I will continue. If I have to go to D.C. and personally drop something in D.C., I'll do that too.
Well, you know what? We want you to do whatever you got to do because you got to stay on it. Well, we only got a couple of more minutes right now, so I want you to do a plug for your organization. Yeah, do it.
DVA, Domestic Violence Ambassadors. Our website is up. All the team's bios they're on their way there. They've just started tonight. DVAambassadors.com, DVADelaware@gmail.com. Thank you guys.
Well, listen, Dawn, it's been a pleasure having you here. Remember, go on to Delaware Info Now. Delaware Info Now, 24 hours from now. This will be up on Delaware Info Now on YouTube. You can like it, you can share it, you can do all the great things where we wanted to get out to as many people as it can. We want more people here in Delaware, in the Delaware Valley, and all over the nation to understand you got to start pressing these law enforcement to do their jobs. You just got to start pressing these legislators to do their jobs. Press everybody to do their job because your life is actually on the line. And when your life is on the line, you're going to go and fight as hard as you can. Well, this has been a Hard Talk with Jakim. Listen, to our guest, Dawn Riley, peace and blessings to you, and we'll talk to you later. See ya.